Good day everyone. I am Jose Mari Diaz, group leader of Group 2. Now let me introduce to you my group mates. Carillo Shirley, Gaspar Mark Alvin, Heron Jasper Franz, Ibarra Mark, La Peña Cristobal, Makatbag Kayla May, Manalo Jericho, Mangadap April Joy, Mangalindan Heherson, and Mangano Cielo. We are going to present the Chapter 4 of the Republic Act number 8371, or also known as the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act of 1997. It is an act to recognize, protect, and promote the rights of indigenous cultural communities or indigenous peoples, creating a National Commission on Indigenous Peoples, establishing implementing mechanisms, appropriating funds therefore, and for other purposes. Chapter 4 is about the right to self-governance, governance and empowerment of ICCs or IPs. Section 13 to 20 is under Chapter 4 and it will be presented by my groupmates. Section 13, Self-Governance. The state recognizes the inherent right of ICCs or IPs to self-governance and self-determination, and respect the integrity of their values, practices, and institutions. Consequently, the state shall guarantee the right of ICCs or IPs to freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. This section allows the ICCs or IPs to govern or control their area for any developments, whether it is economic, social, or cultural development, and it will be recognized by the state as their right.
Section 14, Support for the Autonomous Regions. It upholds that the state shall continue to strengthen and support the autonomous regions created under the Constitution as they may require or need. An autonomous region is an area of a country that has a degree of autonomy or has a freedom from external authority. It is typical for it to be geographically distant from the country or to be populated by national minority. An autonomous region of the Philippines is the first level administrative division that's an authority to control a region's culture and economy. The Constitution of the Philippines allow for two autonomous regions, which is the Cordilleras and the Muslim Mindanao. The national government shall provide support to autonomous regions and give assistance to them by appropriating such rights as may be necessary to accelerate the development of the rights of the region. The state shall likewise encourage other ICCs and IPs not included or outside Muslim Mindanao and the Cordilleras to use the form of content of their way as life as may be compatible with the fundamental rights defined by the Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines, other intentionally or internationally recognized human rights.
Hi, I'm Shirley Carillo and I'm here to explain Republic Act number 8371, Section 15. This is the justice system, conflict resolution institution, and peace-building processes. As has been indicated here on Section 15, the ICCs or IPs shall have the right to use their own commonly accepted justice system, conflict resolution institution, peace-building processes or mechanism, and other customary laws and practices within their respective communities, and as may be compatible with the national legal system and internationally recognized human rights. For example, there are indigenous people in Batangas, and they have their own council, their elders, and if you ask, they have their own justice system judgment that are different from non-indigenous. Yes, they have. What's interesting is when we talk about customary laws or traditional laws, traditional justice system, it's not written in a book, so you have to study it from them. When we talk about self-governance, first in traditional justice system, they have their own way of resolving conflicts and problems. Comparing it to our main justice law, our law is not considered as ours. Why? Because our civil laws, our revised penal code, they are all patterned with Spanish law. Another thing, our corporate law, our taxation, they are patterned after the American law. But what are truly made by Filipinos? What are the laws made by Filipinos? If you're going to indigenous cultural community, you can see how seldom the laws to be punitive in nature. Laws were being established not to punish but to restore the peace in the community. So it's clear that our laws made by our ancestors are not punitive but restorative. That's how self-governance works for indigenous people.
Section 16 of the Republic Act 8371. Section 16 is the right to participate in decision making. The ICCS or the IPs have the right to participate fully, if they so choose, at all levels of decision making in matters which may affect their rights, their lives, and destinies through procedures determined by them, as well as to maintain and develop their own indigenous political structures. Consequently, the state shall ensure that the ICCS or the IPs shall be given mandatory representation in policy-making bodies and other local legislative councils. The Philippines has been regarded as one of the most active and progressive countries in Asia in terms of developing policies and laws, recognizing the rights of indigenous peoples, and ensuring their participation in protected area management and decision-making. The National Integrated Protected Area System or the NIPAS Act was signed into law in 1992 with the objective of developing a comprehensive protected area system and integrate the participation of indigenous and local communities in protected areas, management, and decision-making.
Section 17. Right to determine and decide priorities for development. The ICCs or IPs have the right to determine and decide their own priorities for development, affecting their lives, beliefs, institution, and spiritual well-being, and the land they own, occupy, or use. They shall participate in the formulation, implementation, and evaluation of policies, plans, and programs for national, regional, and local development which may directly affect them.
Chapter 4. Right to Self-Governance and Empowerment. Section 18 Tribal Barangays. The ICCs or IPs living in contiguous areas or communities where they form the predominant population but which are located in municipalities. Province or cities where they do not constitute the majority of the population. May form or constitute a separate barangay in according with the local government code on the creation of tribal barangays.
Section 18 of the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act of 1997 gives ICCs or IPs the right to form their own barangay or tribal barangay in accordance with the local government code on the creation of tribal barangays, where they are the most predominant in their community but they are not the majority races across the municipality, province, or city.
Hello, good day. My name is Serson V. Mangalindan from BS Cream 1-2, your reporter in Section 19 in RPRA Law. In Republic Act number 8371, also known as Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act 1997, Chapter 4 Rights to Self-Governance and Empowerment. Section 19. The state shall recognize and respect the role of independent ICCS and IPS organizations to enable the ICCS, IPS to pursue and protect legitimate and collective interests and aspiration through peaceful and lawful means. The inherent rights of ICCS and IPS to self-governance includes the rights of their organization and must be protected their ancestral domain. According to the National Commission on Indigenous or NCIP, shall and promote the interests and well-being of indigenous with due regard to their beliefs, customs, tradition, institution. They also develop the programs related to their livelihood, education, and infrastructure. This section simply means they need them to recognize and respect their organization among the independent IPS and ICCS. One of the examples is the National Commission on Indigenous and the SWD. We're mandated to implement different programs and projects and provide services through engaging the indigenous people in meaningful development process. where there is full recognition of their capacity to strengthen their own economic, social, and political system. As a citizen, we need to appreciate it so that we can support our IP's friend. This is what this section 19 wants to convey. We need to respect and value whatever program they want in their organization.
Section 19 of the IPRA Law, or the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act of 1997, states that the state shall recognize and respect the role of independent ICCs or indigenous cultural communities and indigenous peoples' organizations to enable the ICC and IPs to pursue and protect their legitimate and collective interests and aspirations through peaceful and lawful means. The ICC and IPs are already capable of doing and innovating things with their own capability, and they can contribute to the state greatly by pursuing their interests and aspirations. The state can help and contribute to the ICC and IPs by showing their respect and acknowledgement to their capability. That is what this law are all about. This specific section provides the ICC and IPs the right to be respected and acknowledged. This law will help them develop their interests and aspirations and help them focus on what they want with peace and lawful means.
The inherent rights of ICCs and IPs to self-governance includes the rights of their organization and must be protected their ancestral domain. According to the National Commission on Indigenous, or NCIP, shall and promote the interests and well-being of indigenous with due regard to their beliefs, customs, traditions, and institutions. They are also develop the programs related to the livelihood, education, and infrastructure. This section simply means they need them to recognize and respect organization among the independent IPs and ICCs. One of the examples is the National Commission on Indigenous and the SWDB, were mandated to implement different programs and projects and provide services through engaging the indigenous people in meaningful development process, where there is full recognition of their capacity and strengthen their own economic, social, and political system. As a citizen, we need to appreciate it so that we can support our IP's friend. This is what this section 19 wants to convey. We need to respect and value whatever program they want.
Section 20 of Indigenous People Rights Act, the Republic Act number 8371 of 1997, the right of means for development or empowerment of the ICCs or IPs. The government shall establish the means for the full development or empowerment of the ICCs or IPs' own institution and initiatives, and where necessary provides the resources needed therefor. The state should guarantee to promote the rights of ICCs or IPs within the empowerment that should protect the rights of indigenous peoples in their ancestral domains to ensure economic, social, and cultural well-being, to achieve and pursue their own development priorities such as livelihood, infrastructure, self-management, natural resources, legal and social services, and other aspects of practical development. It also guarantees their rights to freely pursue their equal enjoyment of the full extent of human rights and freedoms without distinction. Those are the sections that we discussed of Chapter 4, the rights of self-governance and empowerment of Indigenous People Rights Act, Republic Act number 8371 of 1997. Without rights, it can't achieve these full potentials. The rights of ICCs or IPs simply extend the understanding on an individual level to every indigenous people. That's all. Thank you.